Enter the Rothschilds, a family whose footprint stretches from the foggy alleys of Frankfurt all the way to boardrooms, battlefields, and the corridors of power.
Over 2 centuries, one family amassed unimaginable wealth and influence across multiple continents. But beneath their financial empire lies a secret far less understood. A hidden chapter not in ledgers, but in their very blood. How far would the world's richest dynasty go to protect not just their fortune, but their genetic purity? Nearly 3 in 4 marriages within this powerful family were between close blood relatives, a startling pattern that wasn't tradition, but deliberate design. What hidden price did such precision exact on their health and legacy? This is a story about control over money, family, and the very essence of heredity itself. The pattern behind the privilege. The Rothschild family's story is often told through the lens of immense wealth and sweeping influence across global finance. Yet beneath this glossy exterior lies a far more intricate and unsettling pattern, one woven directly into the family's genetic fabric. Between 1824 and 1877, an astonishing 71% of marriages in the Rothschild lineage were between blood relatives, predominantly first cousins. This was not a happenstance of culture or convenience. It was a calculated strategy, a deliberate design to preserve power and wealth through biological means. This practice flies in the face of what most families experience. Typically, cousin marriages might be rare or culturally limited, but the Rothschilds made intermarriage a rule, binding their family fortunes and genes into a closed loop. Behind every marriage certificate was careful calculation, where the consolidation of wealth intersected with a redefinition of family boundaries. Such consistency in marrying closely related partners over multiple generations sets the Rothschild dynasty apart and raises obvious questions about the long-term effects on health and heredity. The strictness of this policy also meant that the family tree didn't expand broadly. Instead, it began to loop back on itself repeatedly. Names like Nathan, Charlotte, and Emma appeared generation after generation, signatures echoing one another on documents that tied cousins sharing both sets of grandparents. Observers at the time even described some unions as marriages of mirrors, exemplifying how tightly the bloodline was controlled. Despite criticism or whispers of risk, this engineered closeness persisted. More than simply maintaining blood ties, it became an unbreakable circle of mutual interest and genetic closeness. Historians who have studied aristocratic families recognize close marriage as a common practice for maintaining power, but few maintained it at Rothschild levels of intensity. Even the Habsburgs, infamous for their inbreeding, never reached such high percentages. What makes the Rothschild approach especially striking is that it wasn't rooted in tradition, but in a clearly defined policy, one designed to trap money, influence, and genetic material inside a tightly sealed dynasty. The consequences of such a closed system would ripple far beyond finance, revealing themselves in ways that silent archives hint at but never fully expose. While social contracts kept this policy out of the public eye, private records tell a different story. Behind the scenes, every marriage was a point of genetic engineering, a transaction of bloodlines meticulously managed alongside assets and titles. These unions served as guardians of continuity, ensuring that no outsider diluted the family's control. In this way, the Rothschilds didn't just protect their fortune, they actively managed their biological legacy as if it were an extension of their banking system. Beneath the surface of wealth and power lay secrets guarded in locked rooms, leading to archives sealed from the eyes of the world and historians alike. Secrets locked in sealed archives. Beneath Vienna and other European hubs, The Rothschild family's archives remain largely off-limits, often described as some of the most protected private collections anywhere. What is publicly known concerns their vast business dealings, properties, and personal correspondence, but much more remains hidden from researchers and historians. The reason given is family privacy. Yet, the intensity and longevity of these restrictions hint at other, deeper motives. Shrouded behind strict confidentiality are documents that tell a very different story. Medical records and genealogical ledgers that reveal a level of control stretching beyond finance into biology itself. These archives reportedly contain detailed records of family genetics, meticulously kept between 1820 and 1900, with the precision of ledgers tracking millions of transactions. Unlike typical birth and marriage certificates, these documents focus on heredity, health anomalies, and private diagnoses. Names appear and vanish, dates blur, and heirs are quietly relocated for health reasons. This coded language gives a glimpse into an intentionally maintained silence, a policy protecting the family not only from public scandal, but from the exposure of fragile truths lying deep within their own bloodline. Historical researchers who have attempted to navigate these collections encounter consistent barriers. Entire categories of documents, especially those concerning health, family matters, and hereditary issues, are either restricted or missing. Some letters and personal notes reference private clinics and extraordinary measures taken to conceal mental illness and other conditions. These gaps in documentation suggest selective preservation designed to shape the family's image across generations, while erasing the less desirable chapters from public view. The circumstances surrounding medical care for Rothschild family members were both extraordinary and secretive. Clinics in Paris, London, and Vienna operated with a shared policy of absolute discretion. Doctors treated members under strict confidentiality agreements, using code words for symptoms and conditions too sensitive to disclose openly. Records mention repeated episodes of auditory disturbances, visions, and nervous disorders carefully kept out of public knowledge, a tacit contract between medical professionals and the family to maintain silence at all costs. This network of secrecy extended beyond mere privacy. There was an active system to erase hereditary illnesses from history itself. Family members who fell ill were not merely cared for medically, but administratively removed, sent abroad under the guise of rest or recovery. These disappearances often ended without obituaries, records, or public acknowledgement. Such enforced invisibility functioned as both protection and erasure, ensuring that any genetic vulnerabilities were hidden not only from public eyes, but even from historical memory. The Rothschilds' story, however, begins earlier still, in the document that shaped their legacy as much as any financial agreement: the law of the bloodline. When Meyer Amschel Rothschild died in 1812, his will did more than divide a fortune. It established the blueprint for one of history's most tightly controlled dynasties. This legal document laid down 4 crucial rules that governed both wealth and family for the next century. First, the banking business would remain strictly within the male line. Second, every heir was required to marry within the family itself. Third, secrecy was paramount above all else. Lastly, any act of defiance resulted in immediate and permanent exile from the family. This was wealth management reimagined as biology, love reduced to arithmetic, the family transformed into a self-contained genetic loop. Mayer Rothschild did not leave his legacy to chance or emotion. By mandating that sons marry cousins and daughters remain without inheritance rights, he aimed to prevent the fragmentation of wealth and loyalty. The effect was a familial structure designed to concentrate power and assets while limiting external influence. Cousins became spouses by design, and breaking these rules meant losing not just fortune, but place within the dynasty itself. Family unity was declared the ultimate shield, a concept taken with ruthless literalness. Placing this strategy into context highlights just how radical and intentional it was. Even among European aristocratic families, such insistence on first-cousin marriages was rare at the intensity practiced by the Rothschilds. Their 71% rate of intra-family marriage far outstrips similar policies among noble houses, making the Rothschild family tree less of a branching network and more of a tightly woven loop. These endless, repeated names and marriages link generations like an unbroken chain designed to guard both wealth and genetics. This system succeeded in maintaining control over multiple banking houses across London, Paris, Vienna, Frankfurt, and Naples. These houses operated as parts of a unified whole, impervious to external rivals or infiltrators. Through their marriage policy, the Rothschilds ensured their money, influence, and secrets could never be diluted or compromised. It was a fortress built not just from stone and law, but from shared blood, engineered to protect their empire from within. Yet there was a price for this shield. While the dynasty thrived financially, the biological consequences quietly accumulated. Some family members showed signs of hereditary conditions, episodes of melancholy, nervous disorders, and other health challenges that contemporary physicians carefully documented but phrased with restraint. The medical language became a code of secrecy, an acknowledgement that beneath the surface of success lay vulnerabilities the family guarded fiercely. This blending of finance and genetics created a new kind of inheritance, one where the family name was both a symbol of wealth and a genome passed down with ruthless precision. The law of the bloodline dictated not only who could join the family, but shaped the family members' very health across generations. What began as a contract on paper became a living, breathing system influencing lives far beyond legal terms. The story continues as we uncover how these secrets affected their health and shaped a legacy of silence. The hidden toll on health. The Rothschild family's tight genetic circle came with consequences that no amount of wealth or secrecy could entirely mask. Historical records and private correspondences paint a picture of recurring health challenges quietly threaded through generations. Physicians noted patterns of nervous disorders, melancholia, and frailty among family members, described with careful, guarded language that suggested an unspoken acknowledgement of hereditary vulnerability. These symptoms were seldom publicized, but appear repeatedly in private medical notes and coded documents. One of the most revealing stories is that of Liberty Rothschild, born Elizabeth Charlotte Rothschild in 1909. Emerging from a family renowned for its intellectual and artistic achievements, Liberty's life was shaped by schizophrenia, a condition that profoundly affected her experience and her family's response. Unlike other family members who thrived in public roles, Liberty lived largely out of the spotlight, supported quietly by family resources that ensured her comfort but shielded her from public view. Her struggle exemplifies the deeply personal and often hidden toll of the family's genetic legacy. Liberty's diagnosis wasn't an isolated case. Across generations, mental health challenges were consistently documented, yet carefully concealed. Medical historians found a pattern of silence and removal whenever hereditary illness surfaced. Instead of public treatment or discussion, affected individuals were subject to administrative disappearances or discreet relocations, often abroad, where privacy was assured. These measures weren't just about health. They were about protecting a carefully crafted family image from the risks of exposure. The family's response to these challenges blurred the lines between medical care and management of information. The Rothschilds created a system designed to eliminate trails of illness from the public record entirely. Clinic ledgers from Paris to London show payments and invoices for patients who seemingly never arrived, rooms booked for convalescence, and treatments coded as temporary retreats or prolonged rest. This was a system as much about erasing genetic vulnerability from history as it was about maintaining health. Such strategies reveal a profound tension at the heart of the Rothschild legacy: wealth and power insulated, yet unable to fully shield against the realities of biology. Despite generations of carefully engineered marriages, the family faced inherited frailties that defied secrecy. Mental illness and other hereditary conditions reminded the Rothschilds that no dynasty, no matter how rich, could rewrite the rules of heredity completely. These hidden health struggles also shed light on the emotional and psychological burdens carried by family members. Silence replaced openness, removal replaced treatment, and illness became a secret guarded as closely as fortune. This dynamic shaped the family's identity, influencing how successive generations navigated the intersection of power, privacy, and vulnerability. The story of Liberty Rothschild ultimately became a catalyst for change within the family. In 1962, her sister Miriam founded the Schizophrenia Research Fund, a bold and personal commitment to advancing understanding of psychiatric conditions that had long been the dynasty's well-kept secret. This act broke with generations of silence, signaling a new approach to the family's inherited struggles, one rooted in scientific inquiry and public philanthropy rather than concealment. The genetic paradox forged by secrecy and survival leads us naturally to the scientific insights that attempt to unravel how brilliance and vulnerability intertwined in the Rothschild bloodline. Science meets secret legacy. The Rothschild family's pattern of constant consanguinity presents a unique case in genetic history, one that defies some of the well-established consequences of inbreeding while confirming others. Geneticists studying sustained intermarriage in closed populations often see a rise in harmful recessive traits, reduced fertility, and visible physical deformities. The Habsburg dynasty famously suffered from such issues, with Charles II's disabilities serving as a stark illustration of inbreeding's toll. The Rothschilds, however, seem to have largely avoided the most severe outward deformities, a phenomenon that has puzzled researchers and given rise to what some now call the Rothschild paradox. Dr. Lisa Bernard, a genetic historian at King's College London, suggests this paradox may be explained by a process called genetic purging. In populations where inbreeding is sustained long-term, the most lethal recessive genes can be weeded out over generations because individuals carrying two copies rarely survive to reproduce. This natural selection reduces the frequency of these devastating genes. However, genetic purging doesn't remove all problematic genes, especially those associated with neurological and psychiatric conditions, which often have complex genetic foundations. Many psychiatric illnesses, including schizophrenia and bipolar disorder, result from the interplay of multiple genes and environmental factors. In families with prolonged endogamy, like the Rothschilds, the same genetic variants linked to mental health vulnerabilities can also enhance cognitive abilities, creativity, and intellectual achievement. This dual inheritance creates a complex legacy where heightened intelligence and artistic talent coexist with increased susceptibility to mood disorders and other neurological conditions. This genetic duality helps explain how the Rothschilds consistently produced individuals of exceptional intellect and accomplishment, even as some family members wrestled with significant mental health challenges. Liberty Rothschild's schizophrenia, placed against the backdrop of her family's many scientific and artistic achievements, exemplifies this unfortunate balance. Though speculation on direct genetic links remains impossible without access to DNA samples, the pattern is compelling and observable. Scientific research also underlines that genetics do not discriminate based on wealth or status. The Rothschild family's experience shows that even vast resources and rigid control over marriage cannot fully circumvent biological realities. Their system may have minimized the most lethal genetic outcomes, but it could not eliminate inherited vulnerabilities entirely. The family's tragedy is a powerful illustration of this immutable truth. The genes they controlled also controlled them. This understanding elevates the Rothschild genetic story from mere historical curiosity to a living example of heredity's complexity. It connects long-debated concepts from genetics, psychiatry, and evolutionary biology with the real world of a family whose name is synonymous with power. The family's legacy, therefore, is not just financial, but deeply biological, a testament to the limits of human control over nature. What lies beyond this nexus of science and secrecy invites us to look deeper into how the family's legacy reshaped not just wealth, but the very meaning of inheritance. A legacy of silence and revelation. For over 2 centuries, the Rothschild family has maintained extraordinary control over not only their wealth, but also the narrative that surrounds their legacy. This control extends deeply into personal realms, particularly their genetic history and health records. Unlike many historic families whose private troubles eventually became public knowledge, the Rothschilds have gone to great lengths to keep theirs hidden. Their archives, scattered across London, Paris, Vienna, and Frankfurt, remain largely inaccessible, with many important documents sealed under strict family discretion. This level of guarded privacy has left historians and researchers piecing together fragments rather than complete truths. This shadowed control means that, while plenty is known about their economic influence, details about hereditary illness within the family are scarce and often contradictory. Historian Natalie Livingstone's research into the Rothschild women uncovered a pattern of psychological issues concealed beneath layers of wealth and social etiquette. Letters, diaries, and minimal medical correspondence hint at pervasive mental health struggles affecting multiple generations. Yet, the specifics of these conditions remain elusive, buried beneath the family's commitment to discretion and preservation of reputation. The family's own documentation features inconsistencies and omissions. Some Rothschild members briefly appear in genealogical records, only to vanish without explanation. Others are referenced privately but left out of official family trees made public. This selective preservation does not necessarily imply deliberate destruction, but represents a sustained pattern of control over what information is made accessible. Through managing their historical record, the Rothschilds curate their image not just financially, but biologically. The discreet handling of mental illness aligns with broader aristocratic practices of the 19th and early 20th centuries, where wealthy families often sent afflicted relatives to private clinics or country estates to ensure complete privacy. The Rothschilds had the means to ensure this discretion was absolute, effectively erasing public traces of hereditary illness. This concealment becomes a form of protection, but also contributes to the opacity that frustrates modern attempts to fully understand their family history. The fundamental question remains: what would these sealed records reveal about the biological consequences of the Rothschilds' sustained endogamous marriage policies? More than a century after the marriages that created these patterns, the access restrictions persist. These closed archives guard answers to how a family that engineered financial perfection grappled with the complex, less predictable nature of genetic inheritance. The delicate intersection of legacy, secrecy, and science forms a puzzle that historians, geneticists, and the public still long to solve. Despite the evidence hiding in locked rooms and overlooked ledgers, one family member brought parts of this secret into the light. Miriam Rothschild, Sister of Liberty, founded the Schizophrenia Research Fund in 1962. Her decades-long commitment to psychiatric genetics broke with previous tradition by openly funding research tied directly to the family's hereditary mental health struggles. Through this act of philanthropy, she challenged the silence her family had maintained for generations, advocating for scientific understanding over stigma. The Rothschild family's story reveals a haunting truth about power, secrecy, and the limits of control over money, lineage, and biology itself. They engineered their legacy with precision, but genetics proved a force beyond finance. If you found this exploration thought-provoking, please like and subscribe for more deep dives into history's hidden stories. Thanks for watching.